When the watch turned out at midnight, they found a vicious half-gale blowing from the northeast. A fairly uncomfortable whole gale of chilly wind. The hard sea, choppy as compared with her great length, dealt the Titan successive blows. A fog bank, into which the ship had plunged in the afternoon, still enveloped her. Ice! Ice ahead! Iceberg! Right under the bows! This grim scene is familiar to everyone. On an April night, a majestic ocean liner ploughs through the North Atlantic, travelling between England and New York. The ship is the largest craft afloat and the greatest of the works of men, boasting every imaginable luxury. It's a massive steel giant with 2 masts, 3 enormous propellers, and more than a dozen watertight compartments that can be quickly sealed off in the event of an emergency. Sometime near midnight, the ship grazes an iceberg on its starboard side. The extent of the damage soon becomes clear, and the ship is ringing with the bee-like buzzing of nearly 3,000 human voices, raised in agonized screams and callings from within the enclosing walls, as it slides below the waves. Since the craft has been described as indestructible, it carries as few lifeboats as would satisfy the laws. It is one of the deadliest disasters in maritime history. But this is not the Titanic. In 1898, 14 years before the Titanic sank, and 11 years before the work began on the ill-fated liner, the book Futility by Morgan Robertson was published. The book told the story of a large ship called Titan, which struck an iceberg on her maiden voyage, in which close to 3,000 people died. The similarities between the two ships are remarkable. The Titan was 800 feet long, the Titanic 882.5. The number of watertight compartments, 19 on the Titan, 16 on the Titanic. The maximum number of passengers was the same on each ship, 3,000. The Titanic had 2,200 passengers aboard, the Titan 3,000. The Titan had 24 lifeboats, the Titanic 20. Both ships set sail on their maiden voyage in April. Both hit the iceberg near midnight, 11:40 p.m. in the case of the Titanic. Both collided with an iceberg in the North Atlantic. In terms of deaths, on board the Titan, 2,987 people died. On the Titanic, 1,523. In both cases, the lookout was unable to see the iceberg until it was fairly close. On the Titanic, the lookout shouted, "Iceberg, right ahead." Titan's lookout shouts, "Ice, ice ahead, iceberg, right under the bows." While there are differences, the Titanic sank in calm seas and freezing conditions, not in a gale, the coincidences are remarkable. But this was not the only work predicting the tragedy. A number of other works seem to anticipate the incident. Thornton Jenkins Haynes' The White Ghost of Disaster, published under the pseudonym Maine Clew Garnett, appeared in a magazine that went to press just before the sinking of the Titanic. Haynes' story centres on a fictional 800-foot-long ship called the Admiral that, like the Titanic, strikes an iceberg while travelling at 22.5 knots. Since the ship doesn't have enough lifeboats, nearly all of its passengers die. There was also Cecilia Thaxter's poem, A Tryst, which tells of a passenger steamer that collides with an iceberg and quickly sinks, killing everyone on board. Thaxter compares her ship to some imperial creature sailing with matchless grace. Some have interpreted this as a Titanic omen. Strangest of all, though, is the case of journalist and newspaper editor W.T. Stead, who published 2 works: How the Mail Steamer Went Down in Mid-Atlantic in 1886, and From the Old World to the New in 1892, that contain details that would be echoed in the destruction of the Titanic. In the former, a sinking ocean liner is equipped with too few lifeboats. In the latter, a ship is felled by an iceberg in the North Atlantic. These coincidences are general enough that they might never have become part of the Titanic's strange legacy if it weren't for one hair-raising fact. Stead died on April 15, 1912, as a passenger on the Titanic.